Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Jay and welcome to the Shiplife. So as usual, we do have a lot to unpack in today's video. We have some updates from Carnival Cruise Lines as they are now talking about the possibility of requiring boosters in order to cruise on their ships in the not so distant future. Potentially, that is. We'll go over the details. We also have a couple more positive updates from Carnival Cruise Lines, and then after that we'll sail over to the saga, the nightmare that's going on with Crystal Cruises. As most of you know, recently their parent company Genting filed for bankruptcy, and it's just caused a giant mess as two of their ships with Crystal Cruise Lines is now in a little bit of trouble with the law. Now, real quick, before we dive into today's episode, I do want to take a brief second to quickly congratulate Emma Cruises for reaching 100,000 subscribers. Most of you may not understand how YouTube works, but reaching that 100,000 subscriber milestone is absolutely massive. It kind of validates your channel here on YouTube as a legitimate, organized, structured channel, and it's kind of like a show of the amount of work that you've put in over the past year or a couple years. It's not easy to do, especially in this cruise space that we're in. The cruising space here on YouTube and on social media as a whole over the past couple years up until this point has been relatively small. But when you see other people other than Gary Beveridge on tips for travelers, you see Tony has hit it, Don has hit it, now Emma, and I guess at some point I'm on my way, which I do plan on doing within the coming months. But either way, guys, this is absolutely monumental. It is crazy, especially to see somebody like Emma, who is of course younger like myself. It's just showing the change and the innovation and what is potentially coming for the entire cruise space. It is just cool to see that all of this is growing, and during the time in the pandemic where cruising is kind of going through a rough patch. I just think it's interesting. However, I do believe times like this do create opportunity. So once again, congratulations to Emma Cruises, and I'll see you there soon. Now let's go ahead and get to the video. So Carnival Cruise Lines recently made an announcement in regards to boosters for the COVID vaccine. They have said that if the CDC requires everybody to be boosted in order to be recognized as fully vaccinated, potentially in the not so distant future, then they will also require all passengers sailing on board their ships to be vaccinated and boosted moving forward. Now, we do know that both Carnival Cruise Lines and NCL have recently come out and openly said that they will adhere to the CDC's guidelines as far as health and safety policies on board their ships, even though they technically don't have to follow the CDC's guidelines. As we do know, the CSO, the conditional sailing order, did recently expire on January 15th. Now, when it comes to booster requirements, the only place that is requiring it so far is San Francisco over in California here in the United States. No other port of call or destination that the cruise lines sail to at this point in time, particularly Carnival, is requiring boosters in order for passengers to disembark over in those areas. However, we do have Carnival with their have fun, be safe protocols, in which as of right now they require you to be fully vaccinated, which that qualifies if you have been fully vaccinated within the past 14 days prior to your cruise. You also have to have a negative COVID test that you took no earlier than 48 hours prior to your cruise, and they do highly recommend that you are boosted. Carnival Cruise Lines has also recently implemented a brand new program known as the VeriFly Pilot Program. Now, to be clear, this has nothing to do with anybody flying a plane. That's probably not the best idea for Carnival to advise anybody to do. Pilot just means it's kind of in its beta or testing phase, but it's going down over in Port Canaveral and has been extremely successful. Basically, what this program does is allow people that are vaccinated, which includes obviously people that are 12 and up and people that don't have exemptions, to submit their vaccination documents online. That way it's all kind of taken care of prior to your cruise, and you don't have to deal with the hassle whenever you get to the terminal. Now, this does mean that Carnival does somewhat have the infrastructure available should they decide to go ahead and make it so you have to be boosted in order to sail. But the big question obviously is going to be, will this actually happen? Like I said, the infrastructure is in play, but there are factors that we do have to take a look at, like of course the CDC, because they're looking at the CDC to see what they do. We have to of course see what's going on with Omicron. As we know, they are somewhat as far as cases on a decline. We're also seeing places over in Europe that's getting rid of their health and safety protocols over in that area, like masking. So I guess all these factors do have to be taken into the equation to see what's going to potentially happen in the not so distant future. However, I will keep an eye on it, but I do want to hear from all of you. Do you think boosters should be required? And if they are, will you actually sail on Carnival cruise ships? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, also in some amazing Carnival cruise news, the highly anticipated Carnival Celebration has received her iconic whale tail funnel. Now, this ship is nearing completion over at the Mayu Turku shipyard over in in Finland. I'm honestly excited because I will be on that ship come November for its inaugural sailing, but this also comes at literally the same time as their next up ship, the Carnival Jubilee, has opened for bookings for 2023. That ship will be sailing out of Galveston, and the Celebration will be sailing out of Miami. This is some great news for Carnival, and definitely a sign that the industry, as far as cruising, is going absolutely nowhere. Moving on, let's get a little more serious and talk about the nightmare that is the Genting Star Dream Crystal Cruises saga. Now, just to get everybody on the same page, Genting recently filed for bankruptcy. They are a massive company that owns multiple cruise lines. Unfortunately, we discovered that they were about $2.8 billion with a B in debt. For that reason, they filed the bankruptcy. Now, full disclosure, we obviously don't know the severity of the bankruptcy. Here, in as far as US terms, there's like a Chapter 7 bankruptcy and there's a Chapter 13. One of which is where the cruise line, or in this particular case, or the company in general, liquidates their assets, meaning they start selling ships or whatever it is they have, that way they can pay off debts and somewhat reorganize. And in the worst case scenario, in the other style of bankruptcy, they go belly up, which obviously is something we are hoping that they don't do. Now, this cruise line does, like I said, own different cruise lines, but the one that has hit the limelight the most in recent days would be, of course, the Crystal Cruises. You got the Crystal Symphony and the Crystal Serenity that's in a little bit of hot water. Now, the more so the focus is on the Crystal Symphony, as we discovered that the ship was sailing out of Florida originally, and they had a cruise where it unfortunately was discontinued, and the passengers were basically kicked off over in Bimini, located in the Bahamas, put on a ferry and sent back over to Florida, while this ship is kept over in the Bahamas. This is all due to an arrest warrant and seizure request from a company that they owe about $4.6 million worth of fuel to. I keep getting locked in with that B word, but $4.6 million, all that needs to be collected in between Star Cruises and Crystal Cruises to a fuel company located over in Ireland. It's just a giant mess. So when it comes to the Crystal Symphony, we do know that about 300 passengers or so, as well as some non-essential crew members, did disembark the ship over in Bimini, Bahamas, jump on a ferry, which is believed to be a very uncomfortable ride. At least this is what a lot of the passengers that were on this ferry were saying, which, yeah, I could imagine a ferry in the middle of an ocean going from the Bahamas to Florida as opposed to a cruise ship would probably be a little bit more bumpy than sailing on a nice large cruise ship that has stabilizers. But either way, this ferry rather, went over to Fort Lauderdale, dropped the passengers and crew off, where apparently they went through some complications there, which again is understandable because the ship originally sailed out of Miami. So there are a lot of people that were probably flying out of Miami, maybe had other alternative plans after the cruise. It's just understandable. And then the crew that maybe have visas and they have to figure out how they're getting home. It's just a giant mess. Now, as far as the Symphony, it's still over in the Bahamas, and apparently the Bahamian government over there is not turning over the ship over to the US. The ship is staying over in the Bahamas because over in that territory, the people over there that want to seize the ship and arrest the ship with the world's largest handcuffs are over in the United States. So they can't just jump over, arrest the ship, and if the Bahamian governments don't cooperate with them, then well, there's nothing they can do about it. Now, I'm also hearing that the crew members on board are being questioned by authorities, which I'm kind of curious to see what kind of questions they're being asked, if that's actually true, because what are they going to say? Like, where's the money at? They want to know where the $4.6 million, and I'm assuming anybody on board that's the crew, whether it be a maitre d' or a stateroom steward, probably doesn't have the answers to these questions. So the Crystal Serenity, which was on a 3.5-month expedition, will officially be ending their sailing at the end of the month on January 30th. Now, whenever this news came out about the bankruptcy and all the trouble going on with the Crystal Symphony, this ship was over in Cozumel. However, there was no action taken at the time. The ship just go ahead and sailed on. But they have now announced to the passengers on board that on January 30th, they will all be essentially kicked off the ship over in Aruba. Now, I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do with the passengers and potentially the non-essential crew over in that area. Maybe they'll arrange some type of ferry like they did over in the Bahamas. Maybe they'll fly everybody home. Either way, I'm sure the passengers on that ship are like, okay, they're in a little bit of shock, because a 3-month cruise that ends early is never a good thing, especially seeing what they probably already know with the bankruptcy is causing a little bit of a disturbance on board, not just amongst the passengers, but the crew as well, which does and is going to inevitably raise a lot of questions. What's going to happen with Crystal Cruise Lines? What's going to happen to the crew? What's going to happen to everybody's maybe refunds or future cruise credit that they are probably going to be owed after they get off this ship over in Aruba? Now, I've also heard rumors here and there, like you guys know, I'm a part of like different cruise forums and crew forums and whatnot, cruise and crew forums. Sorry guys, I'm all over the place today. But on these forums, you have people saying the captain even made an announcement kind of joking that they are going to have to run from the police, which I think is kind of, in a way, disrespectful and distasteful for the crew and the passengers on board, if this is actually true. This is a talk of the town on one of the crew forums from some of the workers that are on board the ship. But either way, guys, you do have to answer these questions, or ask these questions rather, because I think it's very important moving forward for Crystal Cruise Lines. Now, looking at all this specifically with Crystal Cruises, I do believe we have to keep an eye out on Genting Cruises to see if they survive, if they reorganize, to determine what exactly is going to happen with Crystal. Personally, I don't think Crystal Cruises is going anywhere. They have a pretty good loyal base of cruisers that probably only exclusively cruise with this specific cruise line. So as far as the crew members potentially not getting paid, all that in the short term is a possibility, but you also got to take into consideration that this cruise line was bought out by Genting back in 2015 when the industry was doing really well for about $550 million. Now, of course, to common folk like you and me, that's a lot of money. But for a cruise line or another company, they probably have that type of capital just sitting around, which I believe would create a nice buying opportunity if they decide to go that route, being another company decides to buy out Crystal Cruises. Now, even though Crystal Cruises has expanded since, of course, their acquisition with Genting, just looking at the territory and everything that's going on with the debt and $4.6 million that are owed to this fuel company, I believe that they could potentially go on sale and another cruise line is going to scoop them right up rather than letting them go under. However, it's all speculation at this point. I know a lot of people don't like speculation, but this is all we got so far. Either way, guys, I'm going to leave it right here. I just hope everything works out for the crew and the passengers that are unfortunately dealing with these situations on board their ships. Hopefully everything works out and they can get back to another cruise that obviously doesn't just abruptly end. Abruptly end. I apologize, guys. Either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. On your way out, if you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, subscribe, and of course share the video so more people can see it. It goes a very long way in support of my channel. I appreciate and love every single one of you, and I'll see you soon. Take it easy.